Hello everyone, welcome back to Java Express Academy. So as we have learned about CQRS design pattern in our earlier session, we have gone through the theory about CQRS design pattern. Now let's see with hands-on experience for the first time on live session in YouTube. Okay, so to understand about coding part and live coding session here, you must need to have go through this video about implement secure design pattern using Spring Boot part 1. So it's essential to watch to understand the current video. Okay, to join our channel and to join any or enroll any session in our Java Express Academy, please subscribe to our Java Express official channel on Telegram. Okay, without let's start understanding about uh, coding part of secure design pattern. Okay, so if you remember, we have gone through this slide here where we understood that why we need to segregate account microservice into account command microservice and account query service. Here the DB, there are two ways to do. One is like having single DB, another is 2 DB. So I'm choosing the difficult one where we have to use the two databases. You can try by yourself with single database. Let's start with the difficult part and then you can choose a single database one. Okay, let's move to the second slide where uh, I have drawn the flow of the coding part, which we are going to see in a couple of minutes. So this is CQRS command flow. We'll implement command part in this session. If type verbits, we'll do the query session in the next session as well. Okay. So this is a request payload. So generally, whenever we send, we have taken a banking application example, right, where we'll create an account. So when we send the request payload of create account, so internally it will first control goes to the controller class, right, where we'll take the input from the client and then we'll give that input to the service layer. So in our service layer, we'll give that information of the create account to the command gateway. So this is where our command journey will start with the command gateway. So we'll give our DTO class information which we have received from the user to the command gateway. Okay. Once we send the data into the command from command gateway, it will receive it at the command bus. So we'll keep the information of the DTO in the command bus through command. So we'll be understanding about command and all. We have seen the definition of what is command, what is event in our day one, part one of the CQRS flow. So we'll be creating the classes and doing the implementation around it. Okay. So once the command bus receives the command information of create account, so our command handlers will receive the information of create account command. Okay, so our command handler will do some logic here, which is related to the Axon server, where it will start the life cycle of the command. Right here, we are doing create account, right? So life cycle of the account creation will start from here. So once command handler starts the life cycle of the create account, it will dispatch to the event bus. Okay, so there can be multiple event handlers for our single event bus, right? So event bus, it's like here one event handler is like where we store information to database through our repository to the right DB. So we can have another event handler where it will store in the read DB. Okay, so there can be multiple event handlers. Okay, now we will see about how we save in the right database in our session now. Okay, so there are a couple of terminology convention that we need to understand to implement CQRS coding part with Axon server. Okay, so with the basic thing that how do we name our command classes? So we have a naming convention like verb, noun, and the suffix with command. So what is the action we are doing? Create account. So what is the noun here is account. Create is a verb. So suffix with command. So create account command. When you are updating the command, update account command. Whenever you delete account command. Okay, this is a naming convention that industry follows whenever we do this CQRS implementation. Okay, so command classes like create account, update account, variables are always read only, and provide with final variables. We'll make read only variables with final, right? So we'll make the variables as final. Okay, command class should also have ID field. So every command of these three commands should have ID field as a unique ID. Example is account ID. So in a bank, to a customer, account ID is unique across the branches in the whole account, in the whole banking system. The account is unique. So if a person A has account ID, it will not be same for the person B, right? It's always unique. So like that, to make our Axon server to understand what is my uniqueness, will give ID field. So to give that information to the Axon server, what we'll do, we'll annotate with target aggregate identifier, which is a special annotation that we will give. Okay, to tell to the Axon server, this is a unique field that you need to consider for my command. Then Axon server will use this identifier to associate this command with aggregate object. We understood about what are aggregates, right, in our previous session. So we'll do the implementation of the aggregation. Just to recap this, aggregates are nothing but you will do an entity with multiple operations and you group in one place. Here, place is class, that is we call as aggregate class. What are the multiple operations? You will create account, you will credit the amount to the account, you will debit amount to the account. So these are all we'll keep in aggregate class. Okay, we understood about what are the event definition and all in a previous session. Okay, so we'll follow the some naming convention as well in the events. So noun and the action that we perform and the suffix with event. So account created event, account updated, account deleted events. Okay. So aggregate class. Okay. So aggregate class is a core of our microservice. It's a domain object. We call it as domain object. And account holds the current state of the object. So we'll annotate that class also with aggregate annotation. Okay, so we'll have a command handler. If you remember this if you remember this diagram, right, we'll be having command handler. Whenever we dispatch through command gateway to the command bus, we'll be having command handlers. So that command handler will receive here about creation of the account. As I said, that will start the life cycle of the account, then we'll dispatch to the event bus, right? So this is my event bus. So, and then once I dispatch event from event source, it will receive at the event handler. So we are following the diagram which we discussed. Okay. So this is the flow. So from command handler to command bus through the event bus, from event bus to event handler. There we'll save the data into the database. Okay. So we'll see the practical in coding part. So this is a typical folder structure that we are going to use for our project for account command microservice. We'll be having main class, then we'll have aggregate package where we'll store all the aggregate related classes. For in our case, is account aggregate, and then all the commands related to create account in the command package, and then controller. Obviously, we need here for account command controller for create debit and credit amounts, and account DTO to receive data from client, and we'll be having entity object where you will store the data into the database, and then you have events to store into event bus and receive from consume from events as well, event bus as well, and then you will have event handler where you handle the events to perform save operation to the DB. Okay, then you will have exceptions. This is up to you to how to have here, and the repository to connect to the database and the service layer. So we are following all the pattern of a microservice. Okay. Now, don't wait a second more. We'll start creating our project here. So let's use starter Spring IO from Eclipse. Okay. Let's give the name account command microservice. Okay. Let's have the same package that we are using, and let's start giving dependent POM file dependencies, and we are making use of Lombok as well. You are aware that why is the use of Lombok, right? So we are going to use a Spring Boot version here 3.1.5, which is compatible with Axon 4.9.0. You should be make sure that you should be also using 3.1.5. So let Eclipse build our project. Yeah, once that is done, let's add Axon related dependency into our POM file. So let's wait for a couple of seconds. It's 80% now. Okay, this is the first time the live session is happening on YouTube regarding CQRS design pattern implementation. Okay, so let's add Axon related dependencies here. Okay, we are using 4.9.0 dependency. We can see the packages from artifact is from org.axon framework, and artifact is Axon Spring Boot starter. So they built even Axon framework on top of the Spring application. Okay, let's have Java 17. Okay, let's download all the Axon related dependency into our application. Okay, let's add dependent configuration in our YAML file. So I'm converting from application.properties to YAML file, which is the industry standard that people follow here. So I'm adding all the dependencies here of the configuration. We are using MySQL, and this is a command, right? So we are using accounts underscore write database and the credentials that we are using. So I'm running on port 8080. So if you see here, I have readdb and writedb. So I don't have any tables here. Okay, let's start from the coding part. So let's create the packages, controller package, and then service layer and repository layer. Okay, oops, let's rename it. Okay, let's create entity package where we will connect save our entity to database. Let's have DTO package. Okay, let's have entity class defining here. I'll create with the name account. Okay, let's have fields ID, name, ID, balance, and owner. So these are the fields that I am using here. So let's import Jakarta ID here. So I'm using the fields as ID, where the account ID which I'm storing, and the balance amount that account holds, and who is the owner of the account. Okay, let's create the DTO package as well to receive the data from the client. Okay, let's have account create DTO. Okay, let's have the fields. Okay, yeah, so I'll remove the ID, internet ID here. So ID and initial balance, because whenever I create a account, I'll have an initial balance, right? So these three are the fields that I'm going to use. Okay, let's have at the red data and all our constructor. So no need to write all my setters and getters with a Lombok. Okay. Uh, now let's create the commands. Let's have a package as we discussed in the PPT. let's have Java Express dot command package. Okay. So now let's have what is the action that we are going to perform is a create account, right? Let's name it as create account command. Okay. Let's have the fields here. Okay. I'm going to use the same fields, ID, balance, owner. So I'll name it as account balance because I'm taking from the user. It's like account balance. And as let's add Lombok, which reduces our time, all our constructor. And then let's add ID with the at the rate target aggregate identifier, which we discussed, right? We need to have uniqueness to tell the Axon server that this is the ID that you need to consider for my action that I'm going to perform. Okay, let's make them final. As I told, like these are read-only variables, right? Okay. So now let's go to our controller. We'll start adding our controller information here. Let's have a account service as well. Let's have a account repository as well. Let's have a basic structure, then we'll jump into business logic. Repository. Yeah. So let's extend this with CRUD repository. Better to have CRUD repository than JPA. Yeah. This is my account object, and the string is the ID that I'm going to use. Okay. Yeah. At the rate service as let's make it as Spring Bean. Okay. Let's go to the controller, and we'll define our endpoint here. Okay. Let's have at the rate REST controller annotation to tell Spring that is a REST controller, and request mapping for to define our endpoint slash API slash accounts. Okay, let's auto wire our service uh, class here, account service, and then let's auto wire this at the rate auto wire to automatically have our pin information here. So let's have public void create new account. Let's have the request body with account created DTO, which we have done. Let's annotate this with at the rate post mapping at the rate request body. Oops, account created DTO. Okay, let's call this from our controller to service layer. Create new account. So we don't have method in service layer. Let's create now. Okay. So now let's have. So here, if you remember, if we go back to the diagram, yeah, to our PPT. So if you remember from controller, yeah, I have not written service layer. It's a default understanding that from service layer will be calling to the command bus through command gateway. So Axon provides classes for command gateway also. Let's add the command gateway class from Axon library, and let's auto wire it as well. It's a Spring Bean, so we'll auto wire this, and we'll call from our service layer to command bus through command gateway. So we'll have the command information as to keep in information of our action, right? To command bus, let's create a account command information. Give the constructor related get ID and get initial balance, and the who is the owner of the account, who holds the account. Okay. So let's recheck our voids error. Let's hover on this. Yeah, it's a typo issue. Okay, the error is gone now. Okay, we have sent information to the uh, command gateway here, right? So now the command gateway have given the command bus. Now we need to add the command handler code, right? So this send method returns a completable feature. So let's return our entity object. You can have your own separate DTO or wrapper classes to send back. As of now, I'm using entity classes. Okay, let's return same thing from our controller as well. Okay, now let's cool. So now we need to handle the whatever sent by command gateway, right? We need to handle that command. So let's have a aggregate. Let's create the aggregate package and let's define account aggregate class. This is all the heart of the or brain of the CQRS design pattern. Okay, as we discussed, let's annotate them with @ aggregate annotation from the Axon. Okay, as I told, like even aggregate need to have a unique identifier to us, which is associated with our uh, command, right? So let's have ID and balance that we need to have. So let aggregate identifier annotation annotated with ID. Okay, let's have a setter getter, which is from Lombok, and the toString method. Okay, so now we need to handle, right? What is there in our command bus? If you see here, uh, command bus has sent information, and then we need to handle that. So let's have a account entity constructor with create account command, and we'll start the life cycle of it. Okay, public account aggregate constructor create account command. So let's annotate this with command handler. Okay, create account command. Okay, now once we send data to command, once command handler receives the data, right, it will give to the event bus. Let's have account created event also. So let's create a package event javascript.events. Okay, let's create the event with account created event. We have followed the naming convention, right? Okay, let's have the fields here. So ID and initial balance. So banking system follows big decimal. You can Google it why it is needed. We should follow big decimal way of doing instead of double here. Okay, let's have Lombok annotations. @ data $$ constructor and the toString. Okay, Lombok making our life very easy. Now let's go to our aggregate class. Here have account created event. Oops. Okay, let's have here. So now we have sent information to the, let's send this information to the event bus. To have that, let's have annotation event sourcing handler. Okay, now we have the structure. Now let's implement and start the life cycle of the create account command. Okay, aggregate life cycle dot. Yeah, we have third class. Yeah, dot apply. So let's create the event, new account created event, which we have just created. Let's assign command information to the dot get ID and get balance and get owner. command dot get balance, and then get owner, who is the owner of the account. Okay, now we have started the life cycle of the account creation. Now let's our events bus has the information about what the command has sent. Let's assign this to global variables to have the latest information in our aggregate class. Okay, now we have a flow that we have kept account related information in the event bus. Okay, so now we have information in the event bus. Now from event bus, we need consumers who can consume the event. So right now the create account event is the thing that to consume and save into the database. Let's have event handler in our project to handle this event related to create account. Let's create a package. Right click, new package. Let's have event handler. It's a package name. Okay, right click, new class, account event handler. Okay, let's make it a spring bean. Okay, let's have our account repository interface which we have just created to save into the database. Okay, I'll tell you that why we need this much difficult flow to draw, and we have already discussed in the video one, which is CQRS part one. Still, I will explain again why can't we directly save into the database. Why we need to have command bus and all everything. So let's have event handler here, and yeah. So now let's save the account into the database. Let's create new account object, and then let's assign event information to the event dot get id and event dot get initial balance and get owner. Okay, now let's save this dot account repository dot save account. Now the data will be stored in the right database. Okay, let's go to the aggregate once again. Let's see the flow. Okay, command handler received the information from the command bus. Then we dispatch from command handler to the event source, which is event bus. So event, where is our event handler class? So event handler receives information from the event bus and save into the database. Okay, hope everything we have done according to our package structure. Now let's start our Axon server. We have understood how to start Axon server, right? So just to remind you that we need to have config here. I'll attach this information in the our video description as well. So we just need to add this config with this kind of information. By default, it runs on 8024 port number. To give another metadata like what is Axon server name and all that you can give. We have given Axon server as a name. Okay, let's start our Axon server. Java-jar Axon server.jar. Okay, so these are the complete folder structure and flow that we are going to implement as part of our. So let's have some of the sysout as loggings here to understand how the flow is going on. So I'll just give a account controller double colon create new account just to understand the how is the flow is going on. Okay, it's taking time to start. So meanwhile, we'll complete our uh, logging here. This out and account service, then method name where the method is create new account and dispatching. create account command to command gateway to command gate to command bus. Okay. Now let's go to the aggregate class. From here, the flow goes to aggregate class. Let's have sysorts there as well in the constructor. Sysort account aggregate is the class name, and is my command handler. And consuming create account command from command bus. Okay. Now let's add another sysort in the event sourcing handler. Let's copy this. Okay. Meanwhile, we'll just add one more here. Dispatched account created event to event bus, just for better clarity. To event bus. Okay. Now let's add one more sysout here in the event source handling. You can understand how the flow is going through. So let's have all the sysouts here. Event sourcing handler, and then account created event is available in the event bus. Okay. Now let's go to our event handler. We'll add one more sysout here so that whenever it goes through flow, you will understand easily. Okay. Account created event, and it is in the event handler. I'll just add event handler, and then consuming account created event from event bus for write DB. We are storing in the write DB. Right? Same we'll understand about how it goes to the read DB as well. Okay, let's see our Axon. Yeah, it started. Let's start the configuration also. Let's load this. Localhost 8024 is the default port. We'll go with default port. Okay, let's finish the configuration, and then we'll start our account command service, which will automatically connects to the Axon server through the library which we have added. Yeah, configuration setup is done. Let's start our command microservice. Yeah, let's see the logs. You can see that it's connecting to the database. Yeah, now it is connecting to Axon. Okay, now it's successfully connected to the Axon server. Okay, now let's go to the overview where we can see that our application is connected with the Axon server, and let's go to the command section. You can see here we have create account command. In future, we'll have create debit amount commands as well. Queries will have whenever we implemented query, which is query service for the account. Okay, we don't have any events such as. So once now let's go to the postman. Meanwhile, we'll just once go to the uh, database as well. Let's see our tables are created or not. Let's refresh this. So now we can see that we have account table, and the remaining tables are created by the Axon framework just to maintain their structure and life cycle and all. We don't have any rows created for account. Now, as we have seen a controller, the API and all, let's go to the postman, and let's give the account ID as some number like 520. Let's have initial balance as 7000, and the Java XP is the owner of this. So we have API ready. Let's hit the post. Okay, we have see the response as 520, which is the ID we have given. Now let's go to the console. Okay, now we can see that the flow has come to controller and to the service layer, then to the aggregate where we have a command handler to consuming, which is consuming from the command bus. So command handler will dispatch account created event to the event bus, and yeah, so event source handler will receive that, and our event handler will process and to the save in the database. Okay, now you can see there is an event is generated and which we have commands here. Now let's go to the database. Yeah, let's refresh it. Yeah, we can see that there is a row is entered here. These are all about how we store into the right DB. Now let's do one more operation, saving operation with a different ID, 521, and let's give some amount like 5,000. And yeah, Upsar is the owner of the account. You can say 521. So new account is created, and let's give it 522 with the amount as 89,000, which is Bhaskar as the owner. So 520 account is also created. Now let's go to the database. Yes, we can see the 3 rows here inserted, right? So let's go to the events. We can see that there are 3 events are generated. If you open this event, so you can see that what is the information is going through, what is the ID that aggregate identifier is assigned by Axon server, and the information about the ID which we have sent ID and owner and balance information. Okay, this is all about. We can see that we have issued 3 commands here to create 3 accounts. Okay, so these are all about how we store into the right database. Okay, now we will see the magic of how we can do in the read database as well. So this is a flow that we are going to learn and understand and also implement in the next session. Please keep in touch with us. Now one thing I want to say you, like why can't we directly store directly from controller to service then to repository, right? This flow we can save, right, directly. Why we are going to have all this extra stuff, right? So this, to understand, you need to watch the next video which is coming in for the query database. So we have understood the flow, right? When I have taken 2 databases, so how can I sync whenever I create something in the right DB? I should sync the right database information to read DB, right? There we can do with 2 things. One is like schedulers. Another is like you will have some Kafka kind of mechanism where you will push the messages of account creation or amount credited, debited amount information Kafka. So from Kafka, the read DB will subscribe and write. So all these things you have to write coding and you have to maintain it, right? Instead of that, Axon will do that. So how it does that magic we will see in the next session of query part. Okay, that's all for this session. So let's catch you in the next session. Please subscribe to Java Express Telegram channel for more updates. Please subscribe to our Java Express YouTube channel and click the bell icon to for latest updates. Thank you so much. Have a happy day.